Hey everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here. Happy equinox to everyone. Today's the day where Earth is perfectly aligned in its orbit and with its tilt such that there is an equal amount of light and dark on the planet. So we have 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of night. So happy equinox. Now in the northern hemisphere there will be less and less light and more darkness, and in the southern hemisphere the light is rising. And this is historically and traditionally been known as a very powerful energetic portal, or just a very powerful energetic day. A lot of different celebrations and traditions were done and are still being done on equinox. And well, we are having an energy explosion right now across the globe. Multiple powerful storms right now swirling around in Earth's oceans. We have violent typhoon Ragasa, equivalent to a Category 5 hurricane. This is the strongest cyclone yet in 2025, soon to make landfall near Hong Kong, sweeping right now in between the Philippines and Taiwan. And in fact, there was just a magnitude 4-ish earthquake right in that zone, seemingly set off by this violent typhoon. We also have Category 4 Hurricane Gabrielle now in the Atlantic that rapidly intensified to a Category 4. We also today had a magnitude 4.3 earthquake in Berkeley, California, right near the Hayward Fault. And well, California is a very earthquake prone area, though there hasn't been that many earthquakes there of significance lately, whereas we've been having all these big earthquakes elsewhere across the globe, specifically in Kamchatka near Russia. And well, that maybe is loading energy into the California section of the Ring of Fire. That's very interesting. And maybe this is a foreshock to something bigger. The USGS is saying that this is the complete earthquake sequence. There's been some activity there now for more than a few days, but we don't know. It could be a foreshock to magnitude 5 or greater. We also have a fast solar wind impact right now. So on top of all this, our space weather conditions are in flux. It is changing. We have gone from quiet geomagnetic conditions to more active geomagnetic conditions as this large coronal hole is rotated into the geoeffective position, and that high-speed stream of solar wind which flows out of that structure sweeps by the Earth. So all this and more is happening in today's video. Again, I'm your host Stefan Burns, and today's video's format, just FYI, will be a little bit different. I'm treating this like a live stream. I wanted to go live on this video, but my upload speed is not cooperating with me. So I'm just gonna run through the data here, and I'm gonna have this as a preview on YouTube. So if you're watching this when this drops, hello and welcome. I am in the comments with you there. Okay, let us go. Let us check out first off the biggest storm yet of 2025. This is Hurricane Ragasa, just an absolute monster here. And so we see that it is barreling right now towards mainland China, so the eastern coast of Eurasia. And it did manage to slip basically in between Taiwan, here you see the outline there, and also the Philippines. Kind of hard to see because of all the colors, but it did manage to sweep right through there, and it's expected to pass just a little bit outside of Hong Kong. But massive, massive winds. Check out this eye wall. I mean, this is an absolutely insane hurricane. In fact, we got some video of this from the International Space Station. It did a flyover, and it first off shows the full extent of this massive cyclone. They call them typhoons in the Western Pacific, but it's a cyclone just like a hurricane effectively. There's all this different terminology for this stuff. It's a little confusing. Here we can see this video from the International Space Station flying over hurricane or tropical cyclone, this typhoon Ragasa, classified as a violent typhoon. But check that out. Massive, massive, massive storm system right now active in the Pacific Ocean, where we are having some very strange seawater temperatures. So we can look at Climate Reanalyzer. Here's a photo, by the way, of the equinox. So this is exactly when you'll get this line of light and darkness exactly slicing through vertically, whereas during solstice on either side, you'll have this night dark line basically tilted through the Earth there. So here though, we have our climate reanalyzer. All these are linked in the video description, by the way. And this is a very useful website for looking at like temperature anomalies, sea surface temperature anomalies. And so for that one, we want to click down here, SST anomaly, sea surface temperature anomaly. And well, you'll see our legend here, and this is in Celsius, so centigrade. So this is different than Fahrenheit, meaning that if you get up into these color ranges there, that brown and even that red, this is very serious. So we see some significant sea surface temperature anomalies here now in fall. It's no longer summer in the northern hemisphere. Now it is fall or spring for the southern hemisphere. But for the northern hemisphere for fall, look at all these super intense temperatures. We see some up here in the Arctic Ocean near Russia. Here we can see some of the sea surface temperature for the Pacific that is highly anomalous. We also have some around here in like Maine and Newfoundland and more. And it's not the only zone. It's the primary zone though. We also have a lot of sea surface temperatures there in the Mediterranean. There again is the like northern Europe right there. You can see that that's quite intense. Actually, some of the most intense sea surface temperature anomalies measured in the globe right now. Look at how intense it is around the Western Pacific. Japan, Philippines, Taiwan, Koreas, China, all this area is undergoing extreme heat flux, at least as it relates to the ocean. And so that is feeding tropical typhoon Ragasa to these violent levels equivalent to a category 5 with a huge eye wall, super low pressure in that, like about 900 millibars. Here we see our temperature anomaly. This would be for like the air. So you can play with this web app if you want. It's linked in the video description. But you can see that while the sea surface temperature anomaly is really dramatic, the air temperature anomaly is not as dramatic, though often the two are connected in time. Some of that energy from the ocean will bleed up to the atmosphere with time. So this is a current process that's unfolding. Right now, some of the way that this energy is being released is via these massive cyclones. The other one is Hurricane Gabrielle right now, or Gabrielle. I think it's Gabrielle. There's two L's in there. So this is now a category 4, rapidly strengthened. Was not a category 4 all that long ago. Not expected to make landfall for the United States. Right now, it's basically moving north through the North Atlantic, passing close to Bermuda. But this is a very, very, very powerful hurricane that we have active. We can see this may go to category 5. I wouldn't be surprised because of the space weather impact. We can check out zoom.earth right here to get a sense of these different storms. Here's Ragasa right there. We'll come back to that with a more in-depth look. But if we zoom out, we see the expected path for this hurricane here. And so it has this recently really formed up. Just not that long ago, it was just like a disturbance basically. And then it went from category 1, as you can see there, to category 4 incredibly quickly. So, I mean, that's 1800, and then we go back, and basically 24 hours, it went from category 1 to category 4, which is not unheard of, but still a sign of the type of world that we're moving into in this day and age. One where there's just more extreme energy volatility, and in my personal opinion, and based off my research and understanding, Earth is becoming more and more of a storm world, like Jupiter. So we see that it's expected to curve this way, may make landfall, Spain, Portugal, maybe even Western Europe, or could even slice up. It could miss all of them. It could fizzle out. We will have to wait and see, but that is the current expected path for that. zoom.earth also has a zoom in here on Ragasa. So this was a super typhoon not too long ago, and now it is a violent typhoon, which is the highest category, effectively a category 5. And the sustained wind speeds are 140 miles per hour. So sorry, I got that wrong. Actually, super typhoons are stronger. So if you look here, it was 165 sustained wind right there. The pressure went down to 910 millibars, and now it's a violent typhoon. So it did just go through its peak, and now it seems to be coming down a little bit, but still very, very strong. Hong Kong's right there. Guangzhou is just a little bit further in, and it's going to cut right over North Korea, it looks like, based off of the current trajectory. The Philippines has been hit hard. Lots of rain to Taiwan as a result of this, but nothing super violent because it did stick closer to the Philippines. But if it maintains any sort of strength as it makes landfall, this could be very intense. And this, I believe, is the first big storm to make landfall in 2025 in a significant way. We've had some that have like skirted along the coast of different areas, but nothing super, super dramatic. So definitely a big boom shakalaka from hurricane or cyclone Ragasa. So violent typhoon Ragasa there. And if you're interested in picking up these Earth Evolution t-shirts, they are at earthevolution.com/store. The Boom Shakalaka t-shirt is awesome. It is there ready and waiting for you. Now, one of the other big things that happened today is that we had a earthquake in Berkeley. So we'll talk about that, but look at this. Before we do that, here we have this 4.6 earthquake there in the Philippines. Wait, isn't that basically exactly right where Typhoon Ragasa passed over? Yes, it is. And so this occurred just recently. If we go set this for universal time, see that was at 2033 universal time. So just a few hours ago, right as the bulk of this typhoon was over that area, the Luzon Strait. So that's a clear example of a stormquake where you get these intense atmospheric disturbances. They're generating a bunch of electromagnetic energy and also these gravity waves, and that can cause faults that are at their critical stress to slip, release, and to produce an earthquake. So we've seen this time and time again. They're usually not the biggest quakes, like magnitude 4, magnitude 5 would be kind of like up in that higher range. I haven't seen any in my stint looking at this. You know, I'm also not 90 years old. But I haven't seen any of my stint looking at this greater than magnitude 5. 4.6 though is nothing to just discount. It can be a big earthquake depending on the local conditions. And while we just had here in California something pretty close to that, we had a magnitude 4.3, and so this was at 9:56 universal time. And that was at basically 3 a.m. in the morning. So it was a early morning shaker, and right here, basically right on the University of California, Berkeley. So this whole area got a good quick jolt. The epicenter location, probably about 10 seconds of shaking, if that. 4.3 is not the biggest, but it's enough to definitely notice it unless you're really spaced out, or maybe if you're walking around. Sometimes if you're actively walking around, you won't feel it. But if you're kind of stationary, and especially if you're in a building, you will feel that for sure. And people felt that all the way down into Peninsula, San Mateo. Some people woke up from it. That's kind of a good thing that it was early in the morning in terms of a test, because if you're really deep sleep, you'll sleep through it. But some people, light sleepers, because they are completely still and calm and quiet, and it's not busy outside, there's no big 18-wheelers driving by, it basically presents itself as a very novel stimulus. So 4.3 earthquake for Berkeley, and the question that a lot of people have anytime there's an earthquake in the Bay Area is, when's the next one going to be? Because the last big earthquake was down in the Santa Cruz Mountains, Loma Prieta, 1989, magnitude 6.9, and well, this whole area is overdue. Now, it appears that this was a bit of an earthquake sequence. So we have the other earthquakes that USGS has identified as being part of this loaded into the map here, and we'll see that the oldest quakes go back to the very end of August with this 1.2 there, and then August 30th, the 31st, and then we have the 5th of September, then going all the way up to this 4.3. That's today, the 22nd, and then 2.2, 2.6, and a smaller 0.9 magnitude quake. But in general, a little bit of earthquake activity clearly along the Hayward Fault, which runs right through this area, super developed. And the USGS estimates that there's a very high percentage that's going to rupture in the next 30 years, like 75+%, and that the damage could be definitely in the billions. I mean, hopefully not beyond billions and billions, but the infrastructure damage would be really insane if we had a magnitude 7 there, and that's certainly possible. Even magnitude 7.5 is possible, though that would be probably the exact upper limit for the Hayward Fault. And it would be devastating for a lot of people there as well. But thankfully, usually the rule of thumb is the more developed an area is infrastructure-wise, the less deaths there are, but the greater the infrastructure toll is in terms of a monetary cost. So that is the earthquake burst that we had there, 4.3. But is that a foreshock? That's a good question. It could be that we could be looking at magnitude 5 earthquake in that area sooner rather than later. I mean, down here in San Diego, we had a 5.2 recently. I felt that. That was up in Julian, which is in the mountains fairly close by. So it's not impossible for California to get earthquakes. In fact, it's well known for its earthquakes. So there are places that are more seismically active, Mexico being one of them. In fact, we just today had a magnitude 4.5 in Mexico. We can go back here to see that. And we also are having this weird earthquake swarm in Nevada nearby. So maybe these are kind of feeding energy into that area. See this 5.4 right there. So Mexico is very active. Also, you have Cascadia there, which can produce magnitude 9. So California is in between these two really big areas, though Cascadia is often asleep until the dragon awakens, and Mexico is rumbling quite frequently. This is an interesting area right here. We can look at our 30 days and look how this swarm pops up. And we'll change this to be largest magnitude for the area of 4.8 being the strongest. And this is an area with known geothermal, but it's not really your typical earthquake swarm location. So this has been starting up and it's still going off. So I don't know what that means. Look, did we just, no, okay, that's back on the 8th. Yeah, so this is, active in Nevada, fairly close by to California, and just in general, it seems to be a lot of interesting activity in the United States, because there's also some stuff happening up here in Idaho. There's still a little bit of rumbling there. We had the big earthquake swarm, Mount Rainier recently, and so of course there's been some stuff happening here as well. That 5.8 for Oregon. And also we had the magnitude 7 back December 2024 at the Triple Junction. So right in this zone, right near, I think it's Petrolia. I think that's the name, or maybe it's Petrolia. Yeah, I think it's Petrolia. It's just a tiny little spot. Yeah, Petrolia right here. So it's right off the coast. So is California due for a big one? Yeah, the answer is yes. The question is, when's it going to get one? Here we have my California earthquakes map, where I've mapped out all the big earthquakes and I've made a video on this. So I'll link that in the video description if you want to get my sense of where the big one's going to be. But the big one, the big ones occur in California in two locations. It's where the San Andreas undergoes this bend. So you'll see this huge gap in earthquakes there, but that entire zone slipped back with the 1906 magnitude 7.9. And then you'll notice another bend down here like that, and that all, you see that gap right there in earthquakes, and that all slipped back with the magnitude 7.9 1857 Fort Tejon earthquake. And it's near south here of what is it, Riverside? Not Riverside. It's north of Fort Tejon. It's called the Fort Tejon earthquake because that was in this area that slipped, experienced a lot of shaking, but it is north of that historic location. But that's the area, those two fault sections, if they slip, that's where you get the big earthquakes. But Hayward Fault is overdue. Here we see the magnitude 6.8, 1868 Hayward Fault earthquake, that epicenter. And then we also see the Loma Prieta location, 1989, magnitude 6.9. And there's also a 7.4 that occurred here, 1838. So this whole area has experienced magnitude 6s and 7s, but not as frequently as places like Japan or some of these other zones of greatest seismic activity. But California is overdue. I'll keep you up to date if you subscribe to the channel, so make sure you do that, because we cover everything here as it relates to the Earth, the Sun, and the cosmos, and more. So we can look here at our earth.null school to see some of these disturbances, weather disturbances. Here is this category 4 in the Atlantic. Thankfully, it's going to turn away. That's what the models indicate, but maybe all of a sudden does a course change and now all of a sudden East Coast is looking at something. That's not the highest likelihood scenario by any means, but it's possible. Here's Typhoon Ragasa. Here's another disturbance there. And again, remember, this is where we have that big sea surface temperature anomaly. In fact, the entire northern Pacific right now is multiple standard deviations above normal temperatures, which is like, it's something that's basically never been seen before in modern times with our ability to measure this with satellites and more. So very, very odd and anomalous, and certainly feeding these weather systems that we have right there in the strongest storm in 2025. Now, the other thing feeding into all this is our space weather. Here we have our real-time solar wind, and we are right now in a coronal hole high-speed stream impact. This is not the biggest one that we've ever had, but we do see that we had this co-rotating interaction region impact come in, going up to about 18 nanotesla. Normal strength for the magnetic field, the interplanetary magnetic field, is 5 nanotesla. And see here, the velocity of the solar wind did increase. And so now it's up to about 500 or so. So it has been going up. Plasma density has gone down. Now it's below 1, meaning that we are in an earthquake watch. By my count, my standards, is that when we have the solar wind density go below 1, it seems that we get the biggest earthquakes to pop off during that or shortly afterwards. And they are also connected to these coronal holes quite closely. We can see that if we look at our SUVI imagery here, we'll see this coronal hole on the sun. This is the past 3 hours of imagery as I'm recording this. And so we see it rotating now out of view, and we have a lot of sunspots on the sun right now. All these bright regions are sunspots. And so we have about 165 sunspots on the sun. And the biggest one right now, in fact, is exactly Earth center direct, though our solar flare activity has been quite low over the past, well, really over the past few weeks. We haven't had an X-class flare now for a while. So no big, massive boom shakalakas from the sun as it relates to solar flares. But we've had a lot of these coronal hole high-speed stream impacts. In fact, the one right before this, which was a little bit more aligned along the equator, gave us a G3 minus geomagnetic storm with like 15 hours or 18 hours of G1 storming. So that was very, very significant. So that is what is happening, this big energy explosion right now on Earth, the equinox energy explosion. And I will keep you up to date on what is happening. We'll track these storms, the earthquakes. We've also had some volcanic activity. We had, I think it was Luatobi in Indonesia, sent off an ash plume about 15,000 feet up. So we kind of pulled back from volcanic activity a little bit as it relates to like 3 months ago, where there was a lot of volcanic activity constantly popping up. That was like June and July. Seems to have pulled back a little bit. Maybe now it's coming to the forefront again, because we've had a lot of earthquake activity. So we're just going through these rhythms, it seems, between solar activity, earthquake activity, volcanic activity, weather activity, seeing how they're all connected together. If you'd like to be a part of that journey of discovery, curiosity, inspiration, and more, then please subscribe to the channel. Again, I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Thank you all so much for watching. And if you are interested in the Earth Evolution Boom Shakalaka shirt, then you simply just type in earthevolution.com. You'll see the website here. We have a variety of holistic wellness products here, including all organic herbal tea blends and herb coffee, which is 50% coffee, 50% other things really good for your gut like dandelion root, lion's mane mushroom, and more. And so this is available in both yellow and also watermelon. And also just one last announcement before I sign off. I had to remove the shoes from the store. So the earthing shoes are no longer available, and this is for a variety of reasons, but the primary one is because of this new tariff situation from the United States on Turkey. They placed a 15% tariff on the shoes, and it's been creating too much chaos and too much work. So the shoes right now are on pause. They may or may not come back. So all the orders that have been placed will be fulfilled, but people that have ordered them will have to pay a 15% tariff. Just FYI, and I'm looking at ways to work around that. So I'll keep you up to date on that. But the merch and all the teas are produced in-house in the United States of America. Nothing to worry about there as it relates to tariffs and all that nonsense. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Wishing each and every single one of you well. Please take care of yourselves during these very energetically intensive times, because we just had this partial solar eclipse yesterday and now the equinox today, and a lot of stuff coming up in October, as you know, as it relates to all these comets and 3i Atlas. I'll keep you up to date on all of that. So have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next video.